Have you ever realized that perhaps the most dangerous force you face daily is not outside, not the world, not people, not the system, not even your mistakes or failures, but rather a silent, powerful, and treacherous entity that lives inside your own head? Yes, I'm talking about your mind. The one that, when not trained, becomes an unstable territory, a true emotional minefield, where every misdirected thought, every belief you accepted without question, every story you were told and that you didn't even realize wasn't yours. All of this turns into psychic traps, ready to be triggered at the exact moment you dare to walk more, desire something new, or even dream a little beyond what you were taught to accept as possible. And the cruelest thing is that this destruction does not happen abruptly. No, it would even be easier if it did. It is slow. It is precise. It is sneaky. The untrained mind does not appear as a villain. It disguises itself. It approaches with the voice of reason, with thoughts that seem sensible, prudent, even protective. And yet, they are the ones that keep you stuck in the same place. The mind destroys you little by little. It silently sabotages your boldest plans with the doubt that whispers, "Will you really be able to do it?" It undoes your steps with fear disguised as caution. Better wait a little longer, not now. And even more perverse, it uses arguments that seem to come from you, but were programmed by voices you heard in childhood, by looks that invalidated you, by undigested experiences that still live inside you like ghosts that watch you when you try to leave the familiar zone, even before you learn to say, "I." Many people have already told you what you should think, feel, be, and want. And these instructions, which you never consciously chose, have become hidden codes that silently govern your decisions to this day. And what is even more frightening, until you choose to rewrite these codes, you live a life written by others, reacting instead of creating, surviving instead of living, repeating instead of awakening. So the question is not whether your mind is sabotaging you. The real, urgent, and necessary question is, how much longer are you going to allow this to continue happening? Because every day that you don't take charge, the more roots these beliefs grow, the deeper they become part of your identity. And the harder it becomes to realize that the enemy was never the world. It was, and still is, what you believe about yourself inside your own mind. Have you ever considered, with all due seriousness, that perhaps the greatest challenge in your life is not something external, not a difficult boss, an absent partner, a lack of money, the government, or even the mistakes you made in the past? Perhaps what really prevents you from breaking the cycles that suffocate you and accessing a lighter, fuller, and more conscious life is living there inside. That's right, inside your own head. Because the mind, when it is not trained, does not become an ally, it becomes a hostile territory. A labyrinth where thoughts run free, uncontrolled, colliding with the invisible walls of beliefs that you accepted as absolute truths without even realizing it. The uneducated, unrefined, unawakened mind acts like a silent saboteur. It does not shout, it whispers. And that is exactly what makes it so dangerous. Because it dresses up as reason, common sense, prudence. It presents itself as that inner voice that wants to protect you, but that, in practice, imprisons you. Because while you think you're just being realistic, what's actually happening is self-sabotage disguised as lucidity, a subtle poison that seeps through your thoughts, slowly eroding your ability to decide, act, and transform. And the most perverse thing about all this is that it doesn't destroy you all at once. If it did, you might notice. But the untrained mind operates like an emotional erosion. Day after day, it erodes your dreams, fades your passions, erases your courage. It convinces you that this isn't for you, that you've already tried and it didn't work, that now is not the time. And each of these phrases, no matter how innocent they may seem, is an anchor thrown deep inside your being, pulling you down every time you try to emerge. Worse still, most of these ideas aren't even yours. They were installed before you even learned to say, I, through words from adults who said, be careful, you can't, that's dangerous, don't dream so big. For looks that made you shrink, for rejections that you never understood, for traumas that you didn't know how to name. And without realizing it, you internalized voices that now speak with your voice. And that's why they seem like yours. But they're not. These mental programs became beliefs. And beliefs, when not confronted, become absolute truths. Truths that silently control your decisions, your relationships, your opportunities, your destiny. Truths that shape your perception of who you are and who you believe you can become. And what's even more alarming, the longer these beliefs remain unquestioned, the more they take root. The more they become confused with your identity. And the harder it becomes to realize that what limits you is precisely what you never consciously chose. So the real question you need to ask yourself is not whether your mind is sabotaging you, but rather, how much longer are you going to allow this to continue happening? Because every day you postpone this choice, this turning point, is another day that your mind reinforces the chains that bind you. Invisible but real chains. Chains made of, I can't do it, I'm not capable. Chains that you can break, but only if you decide to take control. Taking control doesn't mean eliminating fear, erasing the past, or pretending that everything is fine. It means waking up. It means observing your thoughts with presence, questioning your certainties with courage, and consciously rewriting the mental script that you inherited. Because until you become the author of your own internal narrative, your mind will continue to function on automatic. And automatic is programmed by pain. You can continue living like this. Or you can decide now that it's time to change the way you relate to your own thoughts. Because the life you want, lighter, more abundant, freer, is not on the other side of a mountain. She's on the other side of an internal choice. The choice to train your mind before it continues to destroy you. What if you were losing your life through the window of your mind? Think about it for a moment. Really think about it. Close your eyes if you can and imagine yourself looking at the world through a window. But this window isn't made of glass. It's made of everything you believe about yourself, about others, about what is or isn't possible for you. Now, take a deep breath and allow yourself to feel the weight of this idea. What would you have built so far if you had truly believed in yourself? What would you have tried again, even after you fell? What would you have started, even when you were afraid? Who would you have become if you had listened to your own soul instead of the voices of the past that live inside you? Think about the doors that might be there, open, just waiting for you to take action. Think about the paths that could have revealed themselves if you had taken one more step, just one more. But instead, you stopped, you doubted, you held yourself back. And all of this, not because the world was cruel, not because life held you back, but because your mind, trained by experiences, traumas and conditioning, showed you a distorted reflection of reality, a reflection in which you always seemed too small, too fragile, too late. The mind is that window. And if that window is dirty, foggy, scratched by the pains you never healed, you will see life in a cloudy way. You will believe there is no way out. You will think it is not worth trying. You will assume the role of supporting actor, even though you are the protagonist. But here's the truth that few have told you. That filter can be changed. That lens can be cleaned. That script can be rewritten. You are not hostage to the mind you grew up with. You can train it. You can expand it. You can transform it from an internal prison into a bridge to freedom. The mind can be the place where your life dies every day. Or It can be the place where your life is reborn, with more strength, with more awareness, with more truth. And the choice begins now. Reprogramming begins before you even realize it. What if I told you that the most powerful change you can experience doesn't begin with a conscious decision, but with an invisible seed planted in the quietest part of your mind? What if, while you listen to this voice, while you follow each word of this video, something inside you is already reorganizing itself? Without effort, without resistance. It just happens. Because that's how real reprogramming begins. Stealthily, almost imperceptibly, like a new frequency that gradually dissolves the old system that kept you stuck. And perhaps, without realizing it, you are already accessing a code that has always been there, dormant, waiting for a single command to awaken. Every idea that crosses your mind now. Every image that your mind forms when you hear this. Is taking you to a point of no return, a point where what you believe to be your truth begins to disintegrate, and what's left is the opportunity to choose again, with more clarity, more presence, more truth. What if, right now, your internal script, the one that dictates how you act, feel, decide, and give up, was being gently rewritten by a new narrative, more aligned with who you can be, and not with who you were taught to accept being? Realize that it is not necessary to fully understand the process. Not now, because the mind does not need to understand everything rationally to begin to transform. In fact, the greatest changes happen when you relax the need to control. And just allow yourself to feel. And that is what is happening here, right now. As you continue. As you remain, you do not need to understand how everything will change. You only need to start changing what you believe is possible to change in yourself. And with each new belief that you allow in, an old part begins to lose strength. And perhaps, in time, you will no longer even remember what once kept you trapped. Because true liberation begins when you do not even realize that you have already begun to free yourself. Beliefs are lies that have learned to appear to be truths. Have you ever stopped to question how many of the things you believe about yourself, about others, about the world, are actually old stories repeated so many times that they have become your emotional reality? Beliefs are not facts. Beliefs are not absolute truths. They are ideas, assumptions, interpretations that have taken root within you because they were imbued with emotion. And everything that has an emotional charge, especially if it was experienced in childhood or in vulnerable moments, is recorded as if it were law, even if it never was. Beliefs are like invisible software running in the back of your mind. And the longer these systems remain outdated, the more they hinder your expansion. Have you ever tried to run a modern program on an old system? It crashes, it freezes, it collapses. And that is what happens to a mind that has never been questioned, never been updated, never been treated with the respect and attention that a reality-creating system deserves. And when the system crashes, the impact is profound. Your emotions become cyclical, your relationships enter repetitive patterns, your projects stall, your dreams begin to seem distant, as if truly living were a privilege reserved for others. But there is a turning point. And it happens when you realize that you don't need to continue being held hostage by the programming you received. Because you are not just a user of your mind. You are, and always have been, the programmer. And programmers have power. They have access to the code. They can modify what doesn't work, rewrite the commands, redesign the system. When you take ownership of this role, something begins to change irreversibly. You begin to choose where you direct your attention, and attention is energy, it is life, it is creation. You begin to decide what meaning to give to the experiences you live. And meaning is power. It is what transforms pain into wisdom, failure into a new beginning. You begin to create your life with more intention, more awareness, more authorship. At that moment, you stop being a product of inherited beliefs and begin to be the architect of your own mind. The secret that almost no one tells you. But that is silently governing your life. There is something that very few people tell you. And perhaps that is exactly what is preventing you from changing, even when you really want to. Even when you try hard. Even when you already understand intellectually what needs to be done. The truth is this: the human mind, your mind, does not respond to logic. It responds to emotion. And no matter how many truths you know, if what you feel deep down is contrary to that, emotion will always win. That is why, even when you know that you are capable, even when you know that you have potential, that you studied, that you tried, that you deserve it, if there is a wounded part of you, an unhealed memory, an emotional fragment that has learned to doubt itself, that still carries shame, fear, rejection, or guilt, guess which part will command your next decision? The emotional part. Always. Because what determines your behavior is not the truth of the facts. It is the truth that your emotional mind has constructed. And here's the key point. This emotional truth isn't always fair. It's not always yours. Often, it was built through experiences you didn't choose. Words you heard as a child, comparisons that diminished you, expectations that were never yours, but that have become part of your internal script, like a programming virus that runs in the background without you realizing it. So the only real way out is to create a new emotional foundation. It's not about repeating ready-made phrases in the mirror. It's about deeply rewriting the meaning of who you are. It's about revisiting the stories you tell yourself when no one is looking. It's about identifying the scripts that keep you small, afraid, paralyzed, and replacing them not with pretty words, but with internal experiences charged with a new truth. A truth that you choose, sustain, live, and it all starts here, now. The moment you accept a role that you previously avoided, that of being fully responsible for everything that goes through your mind. Because when you understand that the mind is not a neutral field, but rather a mirror of the emotions you feed, you stop negotiating with doubt, you stop outsourcing blame, and you start doing what almost no one does. You take charge, and when you change your mind, you change everything. Because the mind is the first territory that needs to be freed before any change on the outside can happen. The mind doesn't wait. It takes charge. There's something you need to understand, not tomorrow, not later, but now. The mind is not patient. It doesn't wait for you to be ready. It doesn't wait for your life to be organized. It doesn't wait for you to finally have the time or the courage. It simply does. And if you don't take control, it takes control for you. And it does so subtly, silently, stealthily, until the day you realize you're living a life you never consciously chose. Because the mind you don't control today is the same one that tomorrow will drag you down at the exact moment you're closer than you've ever been to accomplishing something great. And that's why there's urgency. It's not drama. It's not exaggeration. It's reality. The time is now. There's no ideal moment. There's no future more promising than the present you hold in your hands. Every second of waiting, every doubt cultivated, every choice postponed. All of this becomes fuel for the automatic mind, the one that pulls you into the same cycles, the same fears, the same version of yourself, even when you know. Longer fit into it. So if you've come this far, if you're still listening to me, if something inside you has moved, it's because something inside you is awakening. And awakening is just the beginning. The real challenge is to stay awake in a world that lives anesthetized, in a mind that has been conditioned to autopilot. So don't go back to sleep. Don't disbelieve in yourself just because the path seems uncertain. Starting over is always nebulous, but that doesn't mean it isn't real. Share this message with someone who needs to remember that there's still time, that it's not too late, that it's still possible, because it is. It always is. And if this truth touched you in some way, subscribe. Here you won't find just words. Here you'll find keys, and each key you receive opens a new door within you. Because in this space, you don't just hear truths, you rebuild yourself with them.